Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of our myth-busting marriage myths. And we're so glad you came back. We love doing this. We do spend a lot of time doing a lot of research. We want to make sure we get this right. We know that there's a lot of marriage podcasts out there and a lot of stories. Some of them resonate. We wanted to take more of a scientific approach to marriage and still have the stories too.
Well, and I guess maybe a more realistic approach.
Yeah.
Than just opinion. Really diving into more depth than I think.
It takes a lot of time to discuss who did the studies. We want to give them credit where credit is due. For the people who've conducted studies, we want to do this the right way. And we also want to help your marriage become more scintillating at the same time. So it's a tough job, but we are doing it. We would love to have your support by just sharing this with a friend, family. Let them know, hey, look, I found this marriage podcast. It's really cool. Take a listen. So this week we're talking about part 2, Mythbusters. Heidi, you're going to be kind of talking this one mainly. I'll be adding some color commentary if needed.
So on Tuesday's episode, you talked more about general marriage myths, and today I'm going to focus it a little more niche audience, a little more
kind of based more on your studies that you did in your research, your dissertation.
Right. So I will add some of my own marriage myths, but I do think of them more as incomplete narratives that many people have adopted. So it's not really a myth; it's a partially true yet incomplete way to look at things.
That's true. We talked about that last time too. You could really make anything a myth or not. It's just looking at it from both sides of that coin.
Kind of social narratives.
And learning from both perspectives.
Yeah. So some of them, like you said, can be true in part, but when they're misinterpreted or combined with adverse marital situations, they can be problematic for the marriage, cause distress in the marriage, or even I saw some be dangerous to at least one partner. So I'm going to draw, like Scott said, on my own research interviews with religious women, most of who were Christian, some Jewish, one Muslim. I probably won't go into specifics about that, but just the collaborative findings that I used to think this, and now I've found this. So for those of you who don't align with religion, you can either listen with curiosity to see what things are like for religious people and see if it's any different from what your experience is, or you can bow out on this episode, either one. But
I'd listen.
We always invite you to listen and expand your perspective on things. So let's start by talking about a myth that's especially common in faith-based or values-driven marriages. It sounds something like this. If I live a moral, righteous life, and we live a moral, righteous life, our marriage will be protected from major challenges.
Sounds good.
Does that sound?
How do you define moral or righteous? It's all subjective.
That you agree together on what structures and guides and scaffolding. Together for some it may be going to church, for some it may be reading scriptures, for some it may be being kind to people, helping the poor and needy, whatever.
Walks in nature, humanitarian.
Whatever it is. But it is common for people to think that living according to certain standards, and especially when they believe that God, or we believe that God said to live a certain way, that they'll be protected from major challenges. Now, on the surface, that does sound comforting. And don't get me wrong, living with integrity and being guided by spiritual or ethical values, that really is a beautiful thing. Those values can shape how we show up in marriage or how we treat one another, how we stay grounded when life gets really hard. But here's the myth that morality equals immunity. That if you do things right, you'll somehow be immune or be shielded from betrayal or addiction or disconnection or infertility or mental health struggles, trauma, financial hardship, or even infidelity.
But I'm a righteous man. None of that should happen.
Right. Or I'm a righteous woman, or we're both righteous. How is it that we aren't able to have a child? I mean, those are really hard ways to learn that myth of righteousness equals protection
free
from
pass.
hardship. Right. It's just not true. So my own research on betrayal and recovery, I've interviewed women who were deeply devoted to their faith, who sacrificed, who served others, and who loved well. And they still found themselves facing devastation in their marriages, not because they weren't righteous enough, but because life is complex. People are complex, and marriage is not a reward system. It's a relationship. So if you've ever found yourself thinking, we've done everything right, why are we still struggling? Which, let me tell you, I thought that all the time in my first marriage.
I remember.
I really thought I passed off more things in this program than any of the other girls my age in church, and yet it didn't guarantee anything. I don't understand this. So I think it is kind of a little more innocent way of thinking, or an incomplete way of thinking. So when you're thinking that way, just know that you're not alone and you're not doing it wrong. In fact, clinging to this myth can make it even harder when trials do come, because we not only feel hurt and betrayed and blindsided and ashamed, like maybe we failed God or ourselves, but here's the truth that I really want you to hold on to. Living a righteous or a moral life doesn't guarantee an easy marriage, but it does give you the tools to walk through those hard things with grace, with courage, being able to repair. Your values aren't a shield from adversity. They are a compass, though. They don't keep the storms from coming, but they can help you navigate when those storms do come.
And maybe sometimes that navigation is not to be married anymore.
That was the case for me. You're right. Growth can come through all of this. Connection has the ability to come through all of this, and healing is possible, even in the messiest marriages, and especially when we bring our values into how we repair the relationship if we're making attempts to repair. And especially for those who are faith-based, bringing a relationship into God to help you repair, and not just what we hoped to prevent. All right.
Well, yeah, that is a really fantastic thing to think about. Again, thinking of both sides of that same coin.
Right. And these do cause us to look a little bit deeper.
Yes.
So
what's another myth that shows up a lot?
Okay, so let's talk about another one that is, again, a bit more aligned with faith-based communities, especially among women. And that is, if I save sex for marriage, then it will automatically be an amazing experience once I'm married. Sex will be amazing once I'm married. I heard so many women in my studies say this is what they believed. All right. That's a great comment there. It says it all. All right. So I want you to understand where this comes from. For many of us, abstinence was taught as the ultimate guarantee that if we just waited, we obeyed God's commandments and followed the rules, then we'd be rewarded with passionate, fulfilling relationships. But here's the truth. Sexual wholeness doesn't flip on like a light switch after a wedding.
Darn.
Nope.
Darn.
It's not automatic, even if you waited, even if you love your spouse, even if you did everything right.
Was our wedding night magical?
I was really nervous, to be honest with you. Even though I'd been married before, it had been a few years, I had a lot of baggage around sex for my first marriage, but you were amazing. You just took things so slow, so gentle. So I would say in that sense, yeah, it was magical, but it's more magical now. All these years later, it's pretty amazing. Some of the women that I've worked with who waited, who wanted their wedding night to be magical, ended up feeling confused or disappointed or even ashamed when things didn't go as expected. Not because they were broken, but because no one really told them that great sex takes more than purity. Purity is important. Do not get me wrong. But it also takes emotional safety, like what I felt on our wedding night. It takes learning from resources that align with your morals or your faith. It takes body awareness and communication skills, especially sexual communication, which is so hard for a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the people that I know.
Do you think some of these women, before they get married, can start learning about their sexual organs anatomically and start asking questions as far as sexual communication?
Yeah, I think those are important conversations to have. A lot of them don't have the language for that. But in my study, I did find that if women, even later in life, who were faced with having to navigate all of this, if
they still hadn't learned the language, right?
Right. But they were starting to look for resources that were faith-based, that aligned with them. And I think that's really important if you come from a faith-based perspective. So another thing that's important in learning, though, is being able to heal any shame surrounding sexuality or surrounding past trauma or anything like that. And it takes time. Like it can take decades to keep learning, have curiosity, have open conversations, and just trying with each other. What do I like? What do I not like? What do I feel comfortable with? What do I not feel comfortable with? And another important thing that Shalom Levitt in episode on 6 Minutes taught us was to really slow things down. And that especially helps for those new marriages that are trying to navigate the trickiness of expectations versus reality.
We also talked about that in the Real Men Are Sloths.
Yes, episode. That's right. Yep.
The key to the man's intimacy is slowing it down.
Thank you for bringing up that one. It's also helpful when there's a willingness to grow together by both partners, and integrity and honesty. We talk about that, I think, episode 6. So all of this doesn't make difficulties with sexual relationships with your spouse a failure. I want you to know that. This is normal. As Corey Allen said, a lot of times sex is the way that we learn how to adult, the way that we learn how to navigate knowing who we are as a self. So all of this is normal. See, the myth that righteous living equals protection from any kind of adversity promises a transaction. If I withhold now, I'll be rewarded later. But real intimacy is not transactional. It's transformational. It unfolds. It matures. It takes intention. So if you're married and struggling with sex, even if you waited, you're not alone. You're not doing it wrong. In fact, to my list I just gave a moment ago, finding resources, not just books, but finding resources and maybe even a sex therapist who aligns with your belief system, because you're human. And if you're preparing for marriage just now, for those of you who are considering marriage or marriage is soon in your future, it's important to know that purity doesn't guarantee pleasure, but it also doesn't prevent it. Purity and fidelity are important contributors to trust and to commitment in marriage. What matters most is how you show up with honesty, with curiosity, with compassion for each other, for yourself and your spouse.
I like that. Honesty, curiosity, and compassion.
All right, let's tackle one of the most glorified but misunderstood marriage myths out there. And that is sacrifice in marriage is always good.
Isn't it?
Well, don't get me wrong. Sacrifice is a big part of the most beautiful marriages.
So I shouldn't sacrifice for you?
That's not what I'm saying either. Sacrifice is often necessary.
But it's not always good.
And it is, but there are circumstances in which it isn't good. So here's the thing. Not all sacrifice is created equal. Some sacrifice actually hurts your relationship more than it helps. So let me explain. There's this powerful line of research by Impet and colleagues in 2005 that really changed the way I think about sacrifice.
Okay.
They found that what matters most isn't the act of sacrifice, it's the motivation behind it.
Okay.
There are two kinds of motives, is what Impet found. One is approach and one is avoidance.
Okay.
So approach motives are about moving towards something good, like connection, love, or joy. Maybe you give up a night out because you genuinely want time with your spouse, or you want to help lighten their load. So you take on a task for them. This isn't out of obligation, but it's because it brings you closer as a couple.
That sounds like an intentional act.
That's right. And those are the kinds of sacrifice that actually build the kind of intimacy that we're talking about in our 4 cornerstones.
If I were a lawyer, it'd be first-degree murder. But in this case, it's first-degree love. Because it's an intentional act, right?
Yeah. So those kind of acts feel meaningful. Those types of sacrifice feel fulfilling. On the other hand, avoidance motives are about avoiding something bad, conflict or guilt or rejection. You suppress your needs to keep the peace. You say yes when you are really meaning no. And it might look generous on the outside, but inside it often feels heavy and unseen. And here's what the research shows. Sacrificing out of fear or pressure leads to more conflict, less satisfaction, and even more thoughts about leaving the relationship. Over time, it drains connection rather than deepening it. So that's why I love this insight.
I think for me, I like to think of I call it white knuckling. I hold on to that bar, I white knuckle it. I hold on as long as I can. Eventually, I can't hold on anymore. I keep sacrificing for you, and I don't like it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's physically not possible.
You feel distressed and exhausted. It gives us, though, looking through this perspective, insight and permission to check in with our hearts. Not all sacrifice is healthy. Some of it's silent martyrdom. And you probably all know somebody who
I'm the martyr.
I
will take this one on the chin.
Yep. Operates from this perspective. Yep. And that doesn't make you noble. Guys, girls, women, men. It just makes you lonely.
No more martyrs, please.
Yep. So if you catch yourself constantly giving in or giving up, ask yourself, am I doing this to move toward love or to avoid tension?
Nice.
Because one creates intimacy and the other one quietly breeds resentment. Sacrifice can lead to both positive and negative outcomes like we've talked about. And I do want to mention really quickly one other study by Lynn et al. In 2017. And she found that when one spouse sacrifices, but the other doesn't respond with emotional support, which is things like empathy, compassion, appreciation, or simple attunement, it can actually lead to depression and lower marital satisfaction. So if I'm doing all the sacrificing and you're not saying thank you or noticing, I may become depressed. I may have some resentment in the marriage. Or if you're working really, really, really hard and coming home exhausted and I don't say thank you once in a while, show appreciation for what you're doing, you may breed some resentment.
I think this is a reminder to when I sacrifice for you that I need to check myself and say, okay, is this an intentional act? Am I moving towards something positive?
Love.
And if I do that, I'm going to have more resilience in this relationship, regardless of whether you validate my sacrifice or not.
Right. And those circumstances where it goes unseen and there's an expectation or a need for that social support, you supporting me and just saying, I appreciate what you do. That's a really quick fix, I think, for some of these problems that we have. Instead of going unacknowledged, we acknowledge, we support. Support doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be grand. It's often like, thank you so much, honey, for doing that. Or I really see how much you're doing and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. I'm here for you too. That kind of emotional responsiveness can turn a draining sacrifice in just that fast to a moment of deeper connection. And this kind of makes me wonder sometimes when our spouse does sacrifice for us and we receive it well, can that make our mental health much better? Can that make our marriage satisfaction much better? So kind of have the opposite effect?
Absolutely. I think so.
So meeting with care and warmth and gratitude, all of those things help us have better marriages. All right, you ready for another one?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about 2 common myths, actually, that I thought of around money and marriage.
Okay.
First one is our marriage will be so much better once we have money, which I probably thought that several times when we were in grad school.
Yeah.
And we're trying really hard to just come up with enough.
Well, it's true to a point.
Basics in life. But yet, those are some of our very favorite memories. That was an amazing part of our marriage.
Right. It's just happiness is less likely to be had if you're living on the street, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so here's another, the flip side of that.
There is a bottom level that's required.
Yeah. Remember those wonderful days when we were sitting around the campfire begging for food? No,
Yeah.
probably not. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Here's another side of that scenario, though, and that is believing that we need to wait until we get married until we're financially stable.
I hear that one a lot.
Yeah, me too. Now, don't get me wrong. Money does matter. It impacts stress, opportunity, and how we function day to day. But here's the myth. The myth is that money automatically makes marriage easier. And research really tells something very different. In fact, couples across all income levels experience conflict.
This is true.
And when researchers study marital satisfaction, it's not the amount of money that predicts happiness. It's how couples communicate about money, how they handle stress, how they support each other when resources are tight. I've seen couples with plenty of money who are completely disconnected.
Checked out. Yeah.
Yep. And couples just scraping by who are deeply in love, who are wildly supportive of each other and growing stronger together. So no, money won't magically fix poor communication. It won't resolve childhood wounds, and it won't replace emotional intimacy. But here's the other side. Waiting for the perfect financial stability before you commit. That's kind of a little bit of a slippery slope.
I agree.
Stability isn't a destination. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
There's always a reason to wait.
Yep.
One more promotion, one more loan, one
Time
more
to
goal
jump
met,
in.
one more
Join us all.
better job. It's kind of adulting, right?
Yeah. Just do it.
And in the meantime, you might be postponing a relationship that could grow with you through these very challenges. So hear me now. I'm not saying throw wisdom out the window. I'm not saying ignore debt or job stability or red flags in a partner. Be wise and be honest, but also ask, am I using money as a shield from intimacy? Or a delay tactic because I'm afraid of the unknown?
Hard-hitting questions. Dang.
And those are some of the things you can sit down with yourself and
Yeah. I
talk
like
about.
it.
Because while money matters, mindset matters more. Are we a team? Can we solve problems together? This is where the growth happens. Can we face uncertainty without turning on each other? That's what builds those long-term marital relationships. So don't buy the myth that money equals marital bliss or that you have to reach some magical number before you deserve love. Instead, build your marriage IQ.
Listen to Marriage IQ.
Work on communication. Grow your emotional safety. Practice being partners in uncertainty. That's what makes a marriage rich.
I like it. What about some other myths?
Okay, here's another one. This one can feel a little bit comforting sometimes, but it's also dangerously misleading. And this is another one I saw in my research. Is the myth that because my spouse goes to church or synagogue or mosque or temple with me, I know that I can trust them. This one's tricky because on the surface, shared spiritual practices can feel like the ultimate foundation. They're praying with me, worshiping beside me, hearing the same sermons, reciting the same vows. That should mean we're on the same page, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it does. But here's the hard truth. Religious participation isn't the same as relational integrity. So, just like some of the other myths we've looked at, ritual does not equal character.
What?
Attendance does not equal accountability.
Dang.
Performance doesn't mean they're really present there during that religious
They are checked
activity.
out.
So you can do the things, but not be what you're
They're
saying.
doing,
that
but
you
they're
are.
not being.
We talk about that a lot.
We do.
In my research on betrayal, I heard from woman after woman who essentially said, I thought I was safe. He sat next to me every Sunday, or he led devotionals, or he was a pastor, or he wore the label of faith, but didn't live the life behind closed doors. Now, I got to be clear too about this one. This isn't to say that people of faith are more likely to betray. It's actually the opposite. However, it is to say that spiritual performance is not a guarantee, again, a guarantee of emotional safety or moral behavior. If anything, this myth can lull us into ignoring red flags, just sliding right into this safety comfort zone without doing the work to talk, to be aware of your surroundings, to be aware of what you're both doing, to be fully present in the relationship. We assume that shared religion means shared values, shared honesty, shared trust, but real trust isn't built in the pews or in the pulpits. It's built in how your spouse treats you when nobody's watching. Mm-hmm. Are they kind? Are they consistent? Are they emotionally honest? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Mm-hmm. All those things build trust. Can you bring your full self to them and be received with grace, not with judgment? That's what builds spiritual intimacy.
That's true.
Which is one of our parts of intimacy that we talk about. It's not just showing up at the same service. So here's a marriage IQ reframe. Okay. Shared faith practices can support trust, but they don't substitute for it.
Okay.
Don't confuse shared religion with shared responsibility or character or emotional maturity. And if something just feels off, don't silence your gut because your spouse looks the part. Faith should bring you closer to the truth and not shield you from it.
I mean, all of that's true. I think that some people might, when they're burned the first time, they may just totally look at things differently for the rest of their lives and not be able to trust. But I think what we're trying to share with people is that it requires a moderation, a balance of both sides, right? And we always want to assume the best of our spouse. We want to have that little positive bias that we talked about in other episodes, with at the same time not ignoring these red flags. And it just takes time and emotional maturity to look for these things and see the consistency.
I had one woman I interviewed say that a video came from Redbox in the mail, that she opened it up and it was a pornographic video. And she's like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And she asked her husband about it. And he said, I don't know. I think they must have us mixed up with somebody else. Let me call them and send it back. And she just believed that because they talked in their family all the time with their kids about pornography. And he was a very good man from what people saw on the outside. And so just that innocence, that's another time I'm going to come back to the word innocent, the naivety, if you will.
Well, some people say that some secrets you just aren't to be known. But I think we're here to obliterate that idea that you could say that there are just some secrets my spouse never going to know about me. You will not get to that scintillating marriage that you so desperately seek.
No.
Sorry.
No. It's really built on integrity.
So if you're viewing pornography on Netflix, which I don't even think they send them out anymore, it's all online, but it has to happen at some point.
Yeah.
We got to muck through this together.
All right, let's talk about another painful and paralyzing myth that I've heard over and over again, especially from people in the thick of heartbreak. And that is, if one spouse betrays the other, the marriage has no chance of surviving. It is an understandable belief, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Betrayal, whether it's sexual, emotional, financial, or a deep breach of trust of any kind, feels like a bomb going off in the middle of your life. Feels like your life turns upside down. And what is reality? The pain is real and the damage is real. And yes, for many couples, betrayal does end the marriage.
Indeed.
But here's the myth for this one, that it has to end the marriage. The betrayal is a relationship death sentence. As somebody who spent years researching this and have worked with people experiencing this, honest stories of betrayal and survival happen. So I want to tell you something different. Betrayal breaks trust, but it doesn't automatically break the marriage. And it breaks trust in a massive way.
Yeah.
Some couples emerge from betrayal stronger. And that's exactly what my research showed. So of the women I interviewed, 1/3 divorced, 1/3 stayed in the marriage, but had in-home separation or it was just a bad marriage, but they didn't have the financial means to be independent on their own because they'd sacrificed a lot and never worked outside the home. There are a lot of other reasons, but 1/3 of the women completely transformed their marriage. And that's because they faced the betrayal together. They did the work, which often took years, and they got really, really honest with each other. They stopped pretending and they built something brand new. Again, going back to the quote that you were reading in Tuesday's podcast by Esther Perel. Sometimes this was the very, very first time that they built a relationship on communication, on authenticity, on curiosity, on patience and forgiveness and desiring to change. So let me be clear with this. Healing doesn't mean that you have to stay in the relationship. And in my first relationship, I stayed through several betrayals. And then I had this strong impression in my mind, which I feel was a spiritual impression that said, leave now. Not everybody has that. I know someone else well that the message came to their mind, if you stay, this will be a benefit to you. And it was so excruciatingly difficult to stay, but has really been resilient and transformational. Staying doesn't mean healing. Every story is different, but here's what I do know from the research and from real couples who've walked this road. What matters most after betrayal isn't perfection. It's ownership. It's owning what happened. It's dealing with it. It's whether the one who caused the harm is willing to face it and whether the one who was hurt is given space and truth and safety and time to heal. Betrayal isn't the end of the story unless one or both partners refuse to write a new one. So if you're in that place today, even if you've heard the voices, maybe even in your own head saying it's hopeless, I just want you to know hope doesn't come from pretending the betrayal didn't happen, sweeping it under the rug. Mm-hmm. It comes from facing it with courage and wisdom and willingness to rebuild.
That really, Heidi, sounds like the marriage IQ path. It's not easy. It's not automatic. It's possible. And sometimes even scintillating. Such profound thoughts today, Heidi. I think you were able to just drill down and put things under a microscope in a way that I think is going to be really understandable for a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope so.
Myths aren't automatic. They can be true too, depending on how you look at it. But I think you really helped us look at both sides of the same coin.
Yeah, great. And you did a great job with Tuesday's episode doing the same thing.
We appreciate all of you joining us today. Remember that the intelligent spouse knows to change from a stinky to a scintillating marriage first requires a change in themselves. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have you share this with other people. Leave us a rating. Send us an email to hello@marriageiq.com. And until next time, we'll see you on another exciting episode of Marriage IQ.